everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today we're talking about 5 reasons why you may be zinc deficient. When we look at zinc, it's a critical trace mineral that plays a very important role in our immune health, our hormone balance, as well as controlling inflammation, helping boost up things like testosterone, helping with lean body mass, plays a key role with preventing against cancer growth. And most people, in fact, researchers predict that over 2 billion people in the world are zinc deficient. When you think about it, we only have 7 billion people in the world. So 2 billion, that's about 30% of the world's population that are expected to be zinc deficient. And this is so critical to good health. And as a clinician, it's one of the key things that I will look at on a regular basis. And we'll talk about the tests I use to examine for zinc levels, because zinc is one of the most inexpensive but most powerful nutrients you can add to your diet. We're also going to talk about the best food sources for zinc. Of course, we're going to talk about why people are deficient in zinc and what we need to do about that. So let's jump in here. If you don't know me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I'm a natural health doctor. I specialize in helping people improve their energy and their digestion and getting to the root cause so they can overcome chronic disease. I speak all around the country at churches, organizations, large conferences. I'm a featured speaker in many different online summits and online events. And this is my beautiful wife, Angel, you can see in the pictures, and our little twin boys, David and Joshua. So why is zinc so important? Well, if we're low in zinc, these are some of the many symptoms we may experience. We may experience lowered immunity. Zinc is really key for white blood cell activity, extremely important for that. Breast and prostate cancer in particular, of all the cancers, those are in particular are the ones that are very much associated. Lots of associations in the research with zinc deficiencies. Zinc is also very important for brain function and neurotransmitters and reducing inflammation in the brain, so memory issues. Infertility, because zinc plays such an important role in having healthy hormone balance. So infertility, loss of sex drive, frequent colds and flus. And a lot of people will go out and they will get some sort of like a zinc lozenge when they're not feeling well. And they notice that they get results. And so zinc can be really powerful for the immune system. It's so important. Unusual hair loss. Whenever I'm hearing about hair loss, I'm thinking thyroid problems or oftentimes zinc deficiency. So zinc deficiency is really key with that. We talked about brain, so slow thinking processes, spots on the fingernails, another big one. Zinc is very important for all of our senses. So taste, smell, hearing. So individuals that have things like tinnitus oftentimes can be related to zinc deficiency. If we lose smell, or if our taste, we're noticing large changes in a taste, those are all signs that we could have a zinc deficiency. Sinus problems, allergies, loss of appetite, insomnia, low energy, all related to zinc deficiencies. So again, zinc, we said 2 billion people are deficient in zinc. That's huge. That's so critical that we understand this. And we talk about this loss of taste or smell. That's important. In fact, one way you can do a home test on yourself for zinc is you can actually order a zinc tally test off of Amazon.com, and you can taste the zinc liquid. And if you notice you should notice you should notice a really nasty taste. And if you don't, it's a sign that you've lost that and that you actually need the zinc. So it's a zinc tally test. So what are the most common reasons why people are zinc deficient? This is a number of reasons, but number one is leaky gut and digestive disorders. So if we have damage to our gut, we're not going to absorb zinc well. In fact, we need stomach acid in order to absorb zinc. So if we don't have that, obviously we're not going to absorb zinc the way that we're supposed to. In our society, we have an epidemic of issues with leaky gut and chronic digestive disorders. So it's no wonder why we have such a prevalence of zinc deficiency. Also, using medications like antibiotics, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So that's things like ibuprofen and Advil and aspirin. These affect our stomach acid production. Same thing with the acid blockers or proton pump inhibitors. These things all affect stomach acid production. The more we affect stomach acid production, the less zinc we're going to be able to absorb. I have a whole YouTube webinar on stomach acid. So I will definitely recommend that if you want to learn more about the damages that occur in our body when we're low on stomach acid and how to improve your stomach acid naturally. Check out that video. Poor diet and blood sugar imbalances. Whenever our blood sugar is out of balance, we're not going to be able to absorb zinc. We're going to deplete zinc. Also, other key nutrients like magnesium, we're going to deplete these things, which cause major imbalances. Zinc, magnesium, we have huge amounts of deficiencies in these areas in Western societies where we get plenty of zinc in our diet because we have blood sugar imbalances. The other thing about diet is that when we're consuming a lot of grains, those grains are going to have things called lectins in them. And lectins are little anti-nutrients that the plants produce in order to protect themselves. And those lectins will actually bind and pull zinc out of the body. So they cause zinc deficiencies. This is one of the reasons why I'm a huge fan of a grain-free diet, a grain-free. So we're taking out the breads, the rice, we're taking out all those types of things, wheat, barley, rye, oats, kamut, spelt. I take all of those out because we don't want these lectins to bind to zinc. We want to absorb the zinc that we're supposed to. And at the same time, those grains are also high in carbohydrates that can cause blood sugar imbalances. So very important with diet that we get that in alignment. Also, a lot of people are consuming a lot of copper. For example, drinking water from copper pipes, they're getting more copper in their system. And zinc and copper have an inverse relationship and they compete. And so what happens is really we should have somewhere around 12 to 15 times the amount of zinc as we do copper. And so copper doesn't deplete quickly like zinc does. So in our diet, typically the foods that are high in zinc are also high in copper. So we usually get them in this kind of normal ratio. But in our society, of course, because of blood sugar imbalances, because of leaky gut digestive disorders and lectins, we actually need a lot more zinc than we do copper. So food alone is really not a good way to address zinc deficiency. Although we do want to consume food with zinc, there are other ways. Supplements can be extremely important because of the copper zinc ratio and creating good balance there. Chronic stress depletes zinc. We use a lot more zinc in order for our body to handle stress. And then high toxin exposure, particularly to heavy metals. Zinc is really key for protecting the blood-brain barrier, for taking up areas where minerals are supposed to be stored. And heavy metals like mercury, aluminum, different things like that compete with zinc for binding spots. So toxins can deplete our body's ability to absorb and utilize zinc as well. So those are the 5 most common reasons. We talked about the stomach acid connection. This is so important to understand. When we have low stomach acid, so when our body's not producing enough stomach acid, we're not going to be able to digest our food well. We're going to end up with protein and mineral deficiencies. We're going to end up with more inflammation and acidic blood. It's going to create this positive feedback cycle where it's just a vicious cycle. And we continue to produce less and less digestive juices like stomach acid. We have worse and worse digestion. We have more and more nutrient deficiencies, and it causes even more problems. So if you're out there and you're dealing with issues, with the different symptoms we talked about earlier, or if you're out there and you've got things like acid reflux, these are warning signs that your body is telling you that you've got some major issues going on. In fact, whenever I hear about a patient that has acid reflux or is taking an acid reflux medication or a stomach acid blocker, I always get highly concerned for that individual because I know the long-term ramifications of having low stomach acid, something we all need to address. And again, I've got a YouTube video that I did all about stomach acid, so definitely check that out after this video. Okay, zinc deficiency and the immune system. Zinc is super important for bone marrow production, for the development of T cells in our thymus. So basically wherever our immune cells are developing, zinc is critical for those. And so when we have a zinc deficiency, we're not going to have the proper response from our immune system. We're going to get very weak T helper cells. What does that mean? That means that our susceptibility to infections increases. It also means we don't get the T suppressor cells that we need. So we're at a greater risk of autoimmune disease. So this is very, very important. On top of that, also plays a key role with cancer development. In fact, There is one immune pathway, and it's called the nuclear factor kappa beta pathway. And this pathway is an inflammation amplifier, meaning that when the NF-κB pathway, nuclear factor kappa beta pathway, gets stimulated, it amplifies it. It basically sends out a signal for massive amount of inflammation. Now, normally it should be kept in check. And zinc is very critical for binding to a protein that keeps nuclear factor kappa beta in check. Without zinc, when we're zinc deficient, we get an overexpression of the NF-κB pathway. And what happens? We get chronic inflammation, oxidative stress throughout the body. And so when we're zinc deficient, we get more oxidative stress, which creates more DNA damage in our body. And of course, we know DNA damage creates genetic mutations, which increase our risk of developing cancer. On top of that, when we're zinc deficient, zinc plays a key role with the p53 gene, which has to do with DNA repair. So now we also get mutated p53 gene because they're not able to express the way that they're supposed to because we're zinc deficient. And p53 gene is what causes cells to commit suicide when they have DNA damage. So you can see this is a major, major issue. We get more oxidative stress, free radical damage, DNA damage, and then on top of that, we're not able to repair the cells or kill the cells that are damaged. So now we get abnormal cells developing. This is kind of what it looks like. When we have good, normal p53 gene function, the cells, as they're damaged, they'll end up creating something called apoptosis or programmed cell death. Whereas when our p53 gene is damaged and it's non-functional, now these abnormal cells start to grow uncontrolled. And that uncontrolled cell growth is linked with cancer. In particular, when it comes to zinc, we're thinking things like breast cancer and prostate cancer. Those are the most important ones. In fact, a 2012 study looked at individuals with the BRCA1 gene. So the BRCA1 gene, when women are genetic tested, for example, Angelina Jolie she had her genetic testing done and she had a more polymorphism at the BRCA gene, which means she had a much greater risk of breast cancer, uterine ovarian cancer. Well, this 2012 study that showed that individuals who had the highest amount of zinc, so these are individuals that had that same gene, that BRCA gene, that causes many women to go out and get prophylactic mastectomies, meaning they get their breasts taken out from a preventative standpoint because they think that because of this gene, they're going to develop breast cancer. They get their uterus or their ovaries taken out because of it. What they showed is that the women that had the highest levels of zinc had the lowest risk of cancer of women that had the BRCA1 gene. Women had the lowest amount of zinc had the highest amount of risk. So nobody's telling people that get this gene tested, the BRCA1 gene, about zinc and zinc deficiency. But if you take zinc, vitamin D, these key things that help to modulate the p53 gene, you can be safe. You can prevent developing breast, uterine, ovarian cancer. So critical to understand this. Zinc is so important for so many different factors when it comes to our immune system. So how do we get more zinc? Well, diet is definitely a way we can do it, although not the best way. So things like oysters, so shellfish, oftentimes very high in zinc. Seafood in general, so wild-caught salmon, sardines, all very good zinc sources. Seafood is high in zinc. Chicken, grass-fed dairy, so these sort of animal foods are good. Cashews, from a nut perspective. Pumpkin seeds are actually the best plant source of zinc, would be pumpkin seeds. Watermelon seeds are also good. Almonds, spinach, asparagus, dark chocolate. Now, the only thing about this is that all of these foods that are high in zinc are also high in copper. And zinc and copper, they, in a sense, inhibit each other. So if we have a zinc deficiency, consuming zinc-rich foods is important. I do recommend it. However, it's not really going to get us over the hump because oftentimes we have an overload of copper when that happens. And copper toxicity is actually a very significant issue in our society. We see a lot of people with that sort of a problem. So we need more zinc. In fact, how do we test for this? Well, there's a couple things. On basically a comprehensive metabolic panel that also looks at liver enzymes. For example, we do one called the total thyroid test, which looks in detail at thyroid and all the blood markers, liver enzymes. One area that we're looking at is something called alkaline phosphatase. And you can see that bolded here on kind of that first section. You see the alkaline phosphatase in serum. It's 36, that's low. You can see the reference interval 39 to 117. I really look for alkaline phosphatase to be between 60 and 90. That's kind of the sweet spot for healthy zinc, as well as good liver and gallbladder function. If it's really high, it's typically indicating a liver gallbladder dysfunction, although also it could be like, for example, alkaline phosphatase goes up when we have bone growth. So if somebody broke a bone, they're going to have higher alkaline phosphatase, or a child that's developing and growing can have higher levels. But for a normal adult, if it's up high, it's a sign of liver gallbladder issues that need to be addressed. If it's low, like in this individual, 36, it's a sign of a zinc deficiency. So that definitely needs to be addressed. This is one of the tests that we look at to see what is going on with zinc status in the individual. Another test is a hair mineral analysis. We can actually look at the level of zinc in the hair. And I see oftentimes high copper, low zinc. This is common in our society because, again, we use copper pipes, or we've used them for many years in many places. Copper is just very prevalent, and we don't deplete copper the way that we deplete zinc. And if we don't deplete copper, then what happens is copper can build up in our system, whereas zinc typically is not. We're gonna deplete that from blood sugar imbalances, from stress, from a number of different factors. So this hair mineral analysis is a great way to test for zinc deficiencies and to see that in your system. Okay, and then as far as a supplement for zinc, one of my favorite supplements is a zinc glycinate form. Glycine is an amino acid, and zinc, heavy metals, or I shouldn't say heavy metals, but minerals, I should say in general, like selenium, like zinc, these things, they need an amino acid carrier to get through the digestive system effectively and to get into our bloodstream and to be absorbed. So one of the best ways, one of the best amino acids is glycine, because glycine is what we call a GABA precursor. So it helps with calming the brain, relaxing the brain. Most people have an excessive amount of fight or flight or stress hormones and stress neurotransmitters. Glycine helps to relax those things. Glycine also helps to boost up human growth hormones. There's a lot of anti-aging factors. So the number one source of zinc that I use is a zinc glycinate or a zinc bisglycinate, where it's got two glycine amino acids attached to it, which sometimes can create even better absorption. So this right here is in 20 milligram dosages, and I will oftentimes put people on 20 to 40, sometimes even 60 milligrams for anywhere from a month to sometimes 3 months or 6 months, depending on what I'm seeing with their lab testing, what their major complaints are, what's happening with their hormones. When I start to see these things, definitely we address it with zinc. And again, zinc is so inexpensive. This supplement right here is $15 for 120 capsules. So $15 for 120 capsules, very, very affordable and makes a huge impact on somebody's health. And then we also have a product called Vision Protect, which actually uses 35 milligrams of zinc bisglycinate. And most people don't realize, but zinc plays a critical role in eye function. And this is the product that I use to help people overcome things like cataracts and glaucoma or prevent those things. It's also really, really good for the skin. It's got antioxidants like lutein, lycopene. It's got N-acetylcysteine, alpha-lipoic acid, powerful glutathione precursors and carotenoid antioxidants that help protect the retina as well as the skin. You know, we know that the eye is kind of like an extension, or it's in a sense it's almost like the skin, and the skin is really part of our nerve system as well. So zinc is very important for good skin health, good eye health, so good vision. Also very good for helping prevent acne. And acne oftentimes is related to a zinc deficiency. It's one of the ways the body expresses itself when it has a zinc deficiency. So for individuals with things like acne or vision problems, I use this product Vision Protect, which provides the zinc as well as a whole bunch of other antioxidants to support skin and eye health. And of course, if you're interested in going deeper and further with your health, then I would highly recommend contacting me or contacting my functional diagnostic nutritionist, Haley Gibson. We work with people both locally in the Atlanta area as well as long distance all around the world. We do lab evaluations where we look for things like zinc deficiencies, which is what we've been talking about. We also do nutrition, lifestyle coaching, advanced supplement coaching. So that's what we do. We look at your lab work. We set you up on customized nutrition programs and work with your supplements, help to juggle your supplements and put you on the right dosages to see real results, to get to the underlying root cause of your health problems and to help you get healthy and well and live with the level of energy, strength, and vitality that I believe. So I hope you got a lot out of this presentation today. Definitely start consuming the zinc-rich foods like we talked about. Definitely get some lab work done to see if you are suffering with zinc deficiency, and we'd be happy to help in any way we can. So with that being said, I hope to see you on a future training. God bless you guys, and we will see you soon.